A few weeks ago, Sandy asked if I would do the July program about my early childhood. She was interested after hearing about a series of short stories that I had written between 1999 and 2001 when I attended the creative writing classes down at the Plano Senior Center. So today I plan to share with you some of my favorite memories as written during that time. I will begin with a story entitled Living Through the Great Depression. This was written on June 16, 1999. The four of us were beginning our climb up the steep, rocky hillside after filling our buckets with the cool water from the clear spring in Bear Hollow. It was going to be my responsibility, along with my brothers, Marshall and Dempsey, and my sister Emma, to supply the family with drinking water during our first summer after moving from Mountain View to a remote area in the foothills of the Ozark Mountains. The Great Depression of the 30s was in full force. The stock market had crashed, creating an economic catastrophe for the country and a disaster to wealthy people. The bank failures which followed the crash wiped out the savings of many of the working class, leaving them with no jobs and no markets for their products. Our parent decided that if our family was going to survive, we would have to learn how to live completely off the land. And it was a good fortune to have the land, 400 acres of it. It had been given to my father by his father and contained some of the most scenic areas in Missouri. It contained some meadows for cattle grazing, forests of trees for our lumber mill, and several miles of the Jack's Fork River. There were bluffs crisscrossing from one side of the river to the other, and high green hills above the bluffs covered with pine trees, which created a distant horizon in shades of blues and greens. During the 60s, this area was purchased by the federal government and became part of their National Scenic Rivers program. First, my father and brothers built a structure for us to live in until our home could be built and would later become our chicken house. The next summer, my youngest brother Carl was born in the chicken house. And later, when being teased, we would hear him telling everyone who would listen, "The next time I'm born, I don't want to be born in a chicken house." However, there were many things to do in this first summer if we were going to exist in this remote area. A well needed to be dug for our drinking supply. A space for a huge vegetable garden was laid out, then plowed, fertilized, and planted. Incubators were set up in the living room to hatch baby chicks, which would supply us with eggs and Sunday dinners. A team of workhorses had been purchased to plow the fields, and a Jersey cow to supply us with milk and butter. Baby pigs were purchased and fattened using our table scraps. When fall came, they would be butchered for the ham, bacon, and sausage, which would be cured or canned for the winter months. Other parts of the pork would be rendered and then made into soap to do the family wash. Children of today would look at all of our activities as pure drudgery. We, however, looked at it as paradise. In between our chores, we could run and play without complaints from any neighbors. The river gave us our own swimming hole, grapevines for the boys to swing on, unlimited round flat stones to skip across the river, and shallow sandy areas to search for mussels. We were able to dig earthworms and catch fish from the shore or use one of the flat-bottom boats made by our father to fish for bass in one of the deep holes. The warm weather of summer also brought on another job for us, that of picking blackberries and huckleberries for canning and making jams and jellies. Our mother would also see that we had a sample of our hard work and would often treat us to a delicious berry cobbler. Plans for our new home had been drawn and building would start the next spring. Since the home would be of cobblestone, the next big job for we kids would be to scour the hills and valleys for stones of different colors or of unusual design. We had our own contest to see who could find the most unusual stones. We found some with pockets, one with a chipped edge containing a perfect screw design, and some with glistening veins running through, which we naturally thought would be diamond chips. We would carry them up the hill and lay them beside the road to be picked up by the truck on this next trip. My father had made arrangements with a neighbor who was a mason to do the labor on our house in exchange for lumber. I could not even guess what the 6-bedroom house cost to build, since all the labor to dig the basement, mix the concrete, and lay the foundation was supplied by my dad and brothers. And the only out-of-pocket expense was the concrete and the nails. Late summer found us canning the vegetables from the garden, digging and storing both kinds of potatoes in the basement, storing cabbage, turnips, and other root vegetables in the ground covered by straw, and then soil where they would keep perfectly all winter until we needed them. We made sauerkraut, which would be stored in crocks. Cucumbers were pickled or set in brine to ripen, and the popcorn, dried beans, and peas were shelled and stored. We also purchased peaches, pears, and apples by the bushel to be canned in half-gallon jars or sun-dried to use in my mother's delicious fried apple pies. In addition, a supply of crisp, juicy apples was stored in the basements to last through the winter months. The whole family felt safe and secure in our new surroundings, especially with the larder of food that had been put away for the winter months. As proof of our ability to survive the Great Depression, the family would take eggs and cream to town every Saturday and use these products to offset the purchase of staples and food for the animals at the Farmers Exchange. My daughter Barb insisted I include this next story. I suspect her reasoning is because she can't conceive of life without air conditioning. It's entitled Moving Day.